Number one, and I'm so upset that Rockstar always seems to drag its feet when it comes to releasing to PC. I don't understand why they're allergic to simultaneous releases on the PC. But so having said that, I have not played the game at all. However, I'm hugely excited about it, specifically for the fact that it's story driven. Now, having said that, is it a case where the moment you put it in, as with many of the BioWare games, you just get sucked into the story immediately? How long did it take for it to get its hooks into you?
It's interesting because the first missions are very much tutorial and sort of setting it up. And at first, I just sort of felt overwhelmed. The best comparison I've seen when talking about the game is don't think of it like an interactive movie. Think of it like an episodic TV series. Essentially, you're watching what feels like three seasons, essentially, worth of a series because it tells a very full and conclusive story. And so... you actually have 4 different desks that you play in the game. You start off in just as a patrolman, then you switch to the traffic desk. Or no, pardon me, 5. You have a patrolman, traffic desk, then you switch to homicide, then the vice squad, and then finally the arson squad. So the first mission where you're a patrolman, that's very much the tutorial, where it's walking you through, I think it's 3 or 4 different missions where it's giving you very much the basics in terms of like, this is how you investigate a crime scene. This is how you interrogate suspects, or interview suspects. This is how you get from point A to point B. And I'll say that it was probably during the second part of the game, or the second desk of the game, when you're on the traffic desk, that's when I really started to get going for me. So I would say probably that for the first hour to 2 hours, it's kind of new. It's kind of like, what am I doing here? In fact,
as far as the mechanic goes, I mean, is it a case where you're always watching discussions and deciding where to take things, or is there an action component at all?
Yes, there is. You are essentially, it's free roam in the sense that they have recreated 1947 Los Angeles. They've recreated it with an amazing level of detail. And if you were to look at I think total 8 square miles is what they have there. And I don't know, it was a trip for me just being able, because remember, Rockstar also is notorious for using, Vice City, for using,
fake places.
Yeah, fake places. In this case,
this is Los Angeles.
This is real. I mean, there are places I've been that it was really a kick to sort of drive and be like,
I always took it to be a fantasized version of real places. I mean, they say Liberty City, but the last release, I mean, clearly was definitely New York, right down to Times Square and everything. Yeah. I mean, it's, but to recreate... there was some competitor to Grand Theft Auto that made a big deal about being exactly the real streets of LA, and by focusing on that, they lost focus of the story. I think Rockstar's position was that they just wanted the story to be number one, not the fact that these are the actual streets.
And that's the thing. I mean, if I had any critique of the game, okay, so essentially you have 21 story-based missions, 21 cases that you're going to take on over the course of this game. That's not including the PS3 exclusive case or the 2 additional cases that were pre-order bonuses that are available as DLC. And apparently there's going to be another one that's coming out in a few weeks. So you have these 21 cases that you take, but then in addition to that, you have 40 side missions that you get. So when you're driving around your car, you'll get a call over dispatch where essentially you can go to a crime in progress. And these change each time until you clear all 40 of them. And they're sort of random, the order that you get them in, where they pop up. Different cases you'll only get under certain ranks. And those are very short. Those are very action-oriented. That's like you show up to some place, there's a bank robbery in process, you've got to go in and shoot 5 guys, and then the last one is going to hightail it out of there. You have to run in your car, chase them down, and essentially knock them off the road.
Okay, so what was the single biggest thing that stood out about this game that you'd never... There had to be... clearly, you seem to like it, but what was it that was novel about this that sucked you in, that you're like, I've never experienced that in a game before?
Okay, well, the acting and the motion capture performance, I think that's sort of a novelty, but it's a worthwhile one to get you into the game. I mean, when you look at the animations that are done in the game, especially during the interrogation scenes and the interview scenes, I mean, you can tell that these are real actors. I mean, there's Aaron Staton from Mad Men that, they essentially did this probably the most lifelike and realistic in terms of facial expression. Some of the body movements I found a little awkward, but I felt that presentation and then the quality of the performance was the first thing that I noticed. And what's interesting about it is they do put an emphasis on the interviewing and the interrogation in addition to the evidence collection. And I believe the reason why is because you're essentially like a police officer. You're judging the answers that you're being given based on eye movements, based on posture, based on body language to sort of determine whether a suspect is lying to you or not.
Now, do they do any training in there, or do they just assume everybody knows how to spot a liar and you have to figure out for yourself to look for the shifty eyes or the awkward posture?
That's actually what I would say was the thing that frustrated me at first, and I think the one drawback towards sort of getting really involved with the game is that they don't ever give you a clear tutorial. I mean, they tell you the basics, essentially, click this if you think they're telling the truth. Click this if you have a doubt but you don't have evidence to back up your doubt, or click lie if you know that they're lying and you have evidence in your casebook to point out why you think it's a lie.
So there was never it would have been an easy way for them to kind of explain that is if, as part of the way the story begins, if they brought in some guy from the FBI who was going to give a short presentation about how to spot a liar or something like that.
Yeah. I relied on the things that you always sort of read in terms of people tend to look to the side, people tend to sort of fidget, or based on expression. And what I found is that's usually right. But what's interesting about the game, and this is where it really hooked me, because I played through about 5 or 6 hours of it on the weekend on the Xbox 360 version, and then I went back and played from start to finish on the PS3 this week, is that these cases play out with some pretty substantial differences. So you can't really fail.
Wait, based on platform?
No, based on platform. No, based on what you pick. Basically, if you miss certain pieces of evidence, or if you believe the suspect when they're lying to you, you're not going to